Hey there, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm here to help you relax tonight. I know the world is loud, so let these stories be the darkness that helps you drift off. Tonight, we have a collection of tales that range from the breathing you hear in your empty kitchen to the quiet conspiracies hidden in small town schools. Before you get too cozy, do me a favor. Check your doors, maybe dim the lights, and if you enjoy the escape I bring you, hit that like button. It tells YouTube you want more darkness in your feed. Let me know in the comments. What time is it where you are right now? It's always midnight somewhere. Now, turn on a fan for that soft background hum, close your eyes, and let's begin. Story 1. The alarm panel beeped 3 times. Then silence. Then breathing that wasn't hers. She froze in the hallway, grocery bag still in her hands. The panel showed all zones secure. Front door locked, back door locked, every window latched. But someone was breathing in her kitchen. Brenda Simmons had lived alone in the Timberline subdivision for 8 months. The house was new construction, one of 40 identical homes carved into the woods outside Portland. Her divorce had been finalized in March. By June, she'd moved in. By New Year's Eve, she'd learned what isolation actually meant. The breathing stopped. She dropped the bags and ran. The bathroom door had a lock, a real one, brass deadbolt her father had installed during his last visit. She twisted it and pulled out her phone. Her hands shook so badly she had to unlock it 3 times. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone in my house. The operator's voice stayed calm. Are you in a safe location? Bathroom. I'm locked in the bathroom. Can you see the intruder? No, I heard them. In the kitchen. The alarm says everything's secure, but I heard someone breathing. Officers are en route. Stay on the line. She pressed her ear to the door. Nothing. Then footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, moving down the hall toward the bedrooms, away from her. They're still here, she whispered. They're walking around. Don't open the door. Help is 2 minutes away. The footsteps stopped. A door opened. Her bedroom. She heard drawers sliding. Then nothing. When the police arrived, she heard them announce themselves, heard them clear each room, heard them tell her it was safe. She opened the bathroom door. 2 officers stood in her hallway. The younger one, Officer Hammond, gestured toward the kitchen. We checked everything. No signs of forced entry. Windows and doors are all secure. But I heard them. We believe you, the older officer said. Her nameplate read Ferguson. But we need to figure out how they got in. They walked through the house together. Nothing was missing. Nothing was disturbed. But in her bedroom, one dresser drawer was open. The one where she kept her old photographs and tax documents. Things that didn't matter to a thief. This is the 2nd incident in Timberline this month, Ferguson said. Same pattern. No forced entry. Nothing stolen. Just disturbance. What does that mean? We're not sure yet. They filed a report. They gave her a case number. They suggested she upgrade her security system. Then they left. She sat on her couch until dawn, every light in the house burning. The knock came at 9 a.m. She checked the peephole. A man stood on her porch, mid-40s, neat beard, polo shirt with a logo she didn't recognize. He held a clipboard. She opened the door with the chain still latched. Mrs. Simmons, I'm Keith Barnes. I live 2 houses down. I heard the sirens last night. Oh, yes, there was a situation. I know. Officer Ferguson called. Me this morning. I do security consulting for most of the homes in the subdivision. She suggested I reach out. Brenda studied his face. Friendly, concerned, normal. I appreciate that, but I'm okay. Of course. I just wanted to offer my services if you need them. I've installed systems in about 30 homes around here. I know the layout. I know the vulnerabilities. That word hung in the air. Vulnerabilities. What kind of vulnerabilities? Keith shifted his weight. Can I come in for 5 minutes? I promise I'm not selling anything. I just want to explain what you're dealing with. She looked past him at the street. Morning light. Neighbors walking dogs. Everything normal. She unlatched the chain. He walked through her house like he already knew it. Living room, kitchen, hallway. He pointed at things as he moved. Standard builder-grade locks. Tumbler pins. A decent thief can bypass these in under 30 seconds. Your alarm system is basic. Single contact sensors. No glass break. Detection. No interior motion. And the panel. He tapped the keypad in the hallway. This model has a known firmware exploit. If someone knows your monitoring company, they can spoof the signal, make it think everything's armed when it's not. How do you know my monitoring company? It's the default provider for this subdivision. Every house that came with a pre-installed system uses the same one. Brenda felt something cold move through her chest. So someone could have done that? Made my system think it was armed? It's possible, more than possible, and if they got in once, they can get in again. He showed her his proposal. Professional-grade equipment. Door sensors with tamper alerts. Window sensors with vibration detection. Interior motion cameras with night vision. Smart locks with encrypted codes. 24/7 monitoring through his private company. The total cost is $12,000, but I can do it at cost for neighbors. $8,500, installation included. Monthly monitoring is $99. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of protection, and given what happened last night, I'd say it's necessary. She thought about the breathing, the footsteps, the open drawer. Can I think about it? Of course, but I'll be honest with you. The person who did this knows your house now. They know your routine. They know you're alone. If you wait, they might come back. She signed the contract that afternoon. The installation took 2 days. Keith worked alone, drilling holes, running wires, mounting cameras in every room. He explained each component as he installed it. Motion sensitivity, night vision range, tamper-proof casings, encrypted wireless signals. He gave her a master code and showed her how to arm and disarm zones remotely from her phone. "You're completely secure now," he said as he packed his tools. "If anyone even touches a window, you'll know." That night, she armed the system for the first time. Every sensor showed green. Every camera feed showed empty rooms. She felt something close to relief. The first month, she checked the app 17 times a day. Every notification, every motion alert. Most were false triggers. A branch against the window. Her cat jumping on the counter. Normal life translated into data. Keith called once a week to check in. "Just making sure everything's working. Any issues?" "No, it's all fine." "Good. Remember, you can reach me anytime, day or night." The second month, the dependency became routine. She stopped leaving the house without checking the cameras first. Stopped going to bed without reviewing the day's motion events. The system wasn't just protecting her. It was defining her. The third month, she noticed something strange. She was watching the front door camera feed when Keith walked up to her porch. She saw him reach for the door, but he didn't knock. He didn't ring the bell. He pulled out his phone, typed something, and the smart lock clicked open. He stepped inside. She was upstairs. She heard the door open, heard footsteps in the entryway. She grabbed her phone and checked the app. The system showed armed, all zones secure, but Keith was standing in her living room. She walked downstairs slowly. "Keith?" He looked up, no surprise, no guilt. "Hey, Brenda. Sorry, I should have called first. I needed to check the router. We had some connectivity issues with a few systems in the subdivision, just doing a quick diagnostic." "You didn't knock." "I know. I used the master access code. It's faster than waiting. All professional systems have them. That's how we can service remotely. You didn't tell me you had a code that could override mine." "It's in the contract. Section 12, Emergency Access Protocols." She hadn't read Section 12. "Please don't do that again." "Of course. I apologize. I'm trying to keep everyone's system running smoothly." He left 15 minutes later. She locked the door behind him. Then she checked the contract. Section 12 was 3 pages of legal text. Buried in paragraph 4. Service provider maintains master access credentials for emergency maintenance and system diagnostics. She called the monitoring company. "I need to change my master access code." The representative sounded confused. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the master code is set by your installer. That's Mr. Barnes's company. We only handle alarm dispatch. So I can't change it? You'd need to contact Mr. Barnes directly." She didn't contact Keith. Instead, she started watching the camera feeds more carefully, reviewing the logs, checking timestamps. That's when she found it. 3 weeks earlier. 2 a.m. Motion detected in her bedroom. She'd been asleep. The system had logged the event, but hadn't sent an alert. She pulled up the video. The footage showed her bedroom door opening, a figure entering, standing at the foot of her bed for 40 seconds, then leaving. The figure was Keith. She watched it 5 times. Each time her stomach tightened. He'd been in her room while she slept, standing over her, watching. She checked older logs, found more entries, different times, different rooms, always late at night, always when she was asleep. The system had recorded everything but never alerted her. She called the police. Officer Ferguson listened to her story, reviewed the footage, took notes. "This is concerning, but I need to explain something. He's your service provider. The contract gives him legal access, unless we can prove he entered with criminal intent. This isn't technically breaking and entering. He was standing over me while I slept. I understand. But he could argue he was checking equipment, testing sensors. The contract language is very broad. So he can just walk into my house whenever he wants? According to the contract you signed, yes." Brenda felt the room tilting. "What can I do?" "Cancel the contract. Get a different system. The cancellation fee is $8,000. Ferguson's expression shifted. Something between sympathy and recognition. "Let me look into this. In the meantime, change your door locks. The physical ones. He can't override those without breaking in." Brenda changed the locks that night. Paid a locksmith $300 to install commercial-grade deadbolts on every exterior door. Keith's smart locks were still installed, but the physical locks made them useless. The next morning, Keith called. "Hey, Brenda. I noticed the connectivity dropped on your front and back door sensors last night. Everything okay?" "I changed the locks." Silence. Then, "Why would you do that?" "I wanted more security. But you already have the most advanced system in the subdivision. Adding manual locks defeats the whole purpose of smart integration. I'm more comfortable this way." Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice was different, sharper. "I also noticed you've been reviewing old footage. Going back weeks. That's a lot of data usage. Put strain on the server." Her blood went cold. "How do you know I've been reviewing footage?" "I monitor system performance. That's part of the service. I can see when someone's pulling historical data." "So you're watching me watch the cameras?" "I'm making sure the system runs efficiently." She hung up. That night, she started researching. Found a Reddit thread from 2 years earlier. A woman in Beaverton describing the same pattern. Home invasion, security installation, escalating control. The woman's username was deleted. The thread had 17 comments, most from other women describing similar experiences. Different subdivisions, different installers, same structure. She contacted her lawyer, showed him the contract, the footage, the forum posts. "This is predatory," he said, "but it's also probably legal. The contract is airtight. He's licensed. The access protocols are disclosed. Unless we can prove criminal intent, you're bound to the terms." "So I'm trapped?" "For the next 4 years, unless you pay the cancellation fee." She started documenting everything. Every phone call, every unexpected visit, every detail Keith mentioned that he shouldn't know. Like when he called to ask if her sister enjoyed her visit, even though she'd never mentioned her sister was coming. Or when he recommended a good dry cleaner after she spilled wine on her blouse at home, alone, with no witnesses except the cameras. The 4th month, Keith changed tactics. He stopped visiting, stopped calling, but he started leaving notes. Printed cards slipped under her door. Professional, polite, menacing. Noticed your smoke detector battery is low. I can replace it if you'd like. System logged unusual activity at 3 a.m. last Thursday. Everything okay? Your ex-husband called the monitoring company asking about your alarm status. I didn't share any information, but thought you should know. That last note made her hands shake. Her ex didn't have this number, didn't know which monitoring company she used. Keith was lying, or he was telling the truth, which meant he'd been talking to her ex. She installed her own cameras, small wireless units hidden in bookshelves and picture frames, not connected to Keith's system, just recording locally to a hard drive she kept in her car. The footage showed Keith entering her house 3 times in 1 week, always at night, always when the lights were off. He moved through rooms like he owned them, checked drawers, looked at her mail. Once, he sat on her couch for 10 minutes, just sitting, looking at family photos on the mantel. She took the footage to a cybersecurity attorney, someone her friend recommended, someone who specialized in digital stalking. The attorney watched the footage twice. This is compelling, but here's the problem. His company installed the system. He's performing what could be argued as legitimate maintenance checks. The contract allows it. What we need is proof of criminal intent. Proof he staged the original break-in. Proof there's a pattern with other victims. There are other victims. I found them online. Anonymous forum posts won't hold up. We need documented complaints, police reports, witnesses. Brenda spent the next 2 weeks trying to find the other women from the forum. Most had deleted their accounts. One responded. Her name was Tracy Nichols. She lived in Hillsborough. She'd paid the cancellation fee and moved. He did the same thing to you? Brenda asked over coffee. Exactly the same. Break-in, security pitch, escalating control. I couldn't prove anything, so I paid $8,000 to get out. Did you report it? To who? The police said it was civil, not criminal. The licensing board said his credentials were valid. I was trapped, so I paid. How many others do you think there are? Based on the forum? Maybe 15. Maybe more. He's not the only one doing this. There's a whole network. Different cities, different installers, same model. Brenda felt something crack inside her. What do we do? You document everything. You build a case, and you pray someone believes you. That night, Brenda sat at her kitchen table and started writing. Every detail, every visit, every invasion, every manipulation. She compiled the footage, the contract, the forum posts, the timeline. She sent it to the FBI's Cybercrime Division, to the Oregon Attorney General, to a local investigative journalist who specialized in consumer fraud. Then she waited. Keith must have known, must have been monitoring her email, because the next day, the smart lock on her front door reprogrammed itself. She came home from work and found it wouldn't engage, wouldn't lock, just stayed open, mechanism clicking uselessly. She called a locksmith. He looked at the unit and shook his head. Someone changed the firmware remotely. This is deliberate. You need to replace the whole system. She replaced it that night, ripped out every smart lock Keith had installed, went back to manual deadbolts. The next morning, she found another note. Tampering with monitoring equipment violates your contract. You now owe the full cancellation fee plus equipment replacement costs. Total balance due, $14,600. Payment is due within 30 days. She photographed the note, added it to her documentation, sent updates to everyone she'd contacted. No one responded. 2 weeks later, Keith showed up at her door. She didn't answer. He knocked 3 times. Then he slid something under the door and left. It was a legal notice. Breach of contract. Demand for payment. Threat of collections and litigation. She called her attorney. This is harassment, she said. It's also legally valid. You did remove his equipment. The contract specifies penalties. He made my lock stop working. Can you prove that? She couldn't, not in a way that would hold up in court. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, watching shadows move across her ceiling, wondering how many cameras were still hidden in her house. wondering what footage Keith still had, wondering what he would do with it. At 2 a.m., she got up and started searching, behind vents, inside light fixtures, under furniture. She found 3 cameras she didn't install. Small, professional, wired into the wall so they'd never run out of battery. She left them where they were. Instead, she set up her laptop and started typing. A full confession, a detailed timeline, names, addresses, forum screenshots, video evidence, everything she had. She saved it to a cloud drive, shared it with 5 people she trusted, set it to auto-publish to social media if she didn't log in for 72 hours. Then she wrote one more document, shorter, direct. If something happens to me, Keith Barnes installed a security system with hidden cameras and backdoor access. He used that access to stalk me, monitor me, and control me. He's done this to other women. The evidence is in the attached files. Make sure someone investigates. Make sure they find the others. Make sure he doesn't do this again. She saved that too. The next morning, she made coffee and sat at her kitchen table. Her laptop was open. The email was drafted. The recipient list included the FBI, the state attorney general, the local news, and a consumer protection nonprofit that specialized in predatory contracts. Her finger hovered over the send button. The front door camera showed movement. Keith was walking up her driveway. He was carrying a toolbox. He was smiling. She looked at the screen, looked at the door, looked back at the screen. The cursor blinked in the subject line. Evidence of systematic surveillance and predatory contracting. Keith reached her porch. He set down the toolbox. He pulled out his phone. She pressed send. Then she picked up her phone and dialed 911 for the second time in 4 months. When they asked her what her emergency was, she said, "Someone's trying to break into my house, and I have proof he's been doing it for months." Story 2. 5 children circled in red ink on a photocopied yearbook page. 5 empty desks scattered across 3 grade levels. 5 sets of parents who called the school office and were told the same thing. Your child has been transferred. The paperwork is in order. Everything is fine. Everything was not fine. Detective Allison Crane had been working child welfare cases for the Oregon State Police for 23 years. She had seen abuse, neglect, kidnapping, custodial interference. She had never seen children vanish through official channels like water through cupped hands. The first call came from a private investigator named Gary Lennox. He had been hired by the mother of a 9-year-old girl named Emma Brandt. Emma attended Riverside Elementary in the Portland suburbs, a sprawling brick building constructed in 1974 with narrow hallways and a maze of administrative offices tucked into converted storage rooms. On October 12, 2023, Emma went to school. She never came home. The school told Emma's mother that the girl had been transferred to a private learning center in Beaverton. The mother had never authorized the transfer. She had never signed paperwork. When she demanded to see her daughter, the principal showed her a document with her signature. The mother insisted it was forged. The principal suggested she contact her caseworker. Emma's mother was a recovering addict with a history of CPS involvement. She had no caseworker. She had been clean for 4 years. Lennox traced the supposed transfer. The private learning center in Beaverton had no record of Emma Brandt. The center's director had never heard the name. Lennox checked the signature on the transfer document against known samples of the mother's writing. It was a forgery, but a good one. Someone had practiced. Crane took the case in early November. By the time she arrived at Riverside Elementary, Emma had been missing for 3 weeks. The principal was a woman in her early 60s named Margaret Foss. She had worked in the district for 37 years. She wore reading glasses on a chain and spoke in the measured tone of someone accustomed to managing crises. She assured Crane that the transfer paperwork was legitimate, filed through proper channels, approved by the district office. She offered Crane coffee. Crane declined. Crane requested the school's records for the past 2 years. She asked specifically for students who had been transferred out. Foss hesitated, then agreed. The records arrived 3 days later, delivered by the school's administrative assistant. 147 pages. 92 students transferred. Most went to other schools in the district. Some moved out of state. A handful went to alternative education programs. Crane cross-referenced the names against state databases. 86 checked out. 6 did not. The 6 included Emma Brandt. The others were a 10-year-old boy named Leo Harmon, an 8-year-old girl named Nora Fielding, a 7-year-old boy named Miles Peterson, an 11-year-old girl named Ruby Talbot, and a 9-year-old boy named Finn O'Keefe. All 6 had been transferred within the past 18 months. All 6 had similar profiles: foster children, children with minimal family contact, children with behavioral issues documented in their school files. All 6 had parents or guardians who insisted the transfers were unauthorized. Crane visited each family. The stories were identical. The children had simply stopped coming home. The school provided paperwork showing the transfer was official. The families were low income, transient, or involved with the system in ways that made challenging the school district difficult. They lacked resources. They lacked standing. They were told the children were safer in specialized programs. None of the receiving institutions had records of the children. Crane requested the architectural plans for Riverside Elementary. The building was old, outdated, and poorly maintained. The district had considered shutting it down twice in the past decade, but kept it open due to overcrowding elsewhere. The plans showed the original 1974 layout. Classrooms arranged in 2 wings, administrative offices in the center, a cafeteria and gymnasium at the rear. There was a notation for a crawl space beneath the east wing, installed during construction for plumbing and electrical access. The space was 2 feet high, running the length of the building, accessible through a maintenance closet near the music room. Crane requested the security footage. The district office sent her 16 weeks of recordings from 12 cameras positioned throughout the school. Most of the footage was mundane. Children arriving in the morning, leaving in the afternoon, teachers moving between classrooms, custodians emptying trash. Crane watched at double speed, noting timestamps, searching for anomalies. She found them. On September 17, 2023, at 2:14 p.m., a man in a gray jacket entered the school through the side entrance near the playground. He was not a teacher. He was not staff. He signed in at the office, spoke briefly with someone off camera, then walked toward the east wing. At 2:31 p.m., he opened the maintenance closet near the music room. He disappeared inside. At 2:47 p.m., he emerged. He was alone. At 3:05 p.m., the same man exited the building through the same side entrance. He was carrying nothing. Crane reviewed the footage for the day Emma Brandt disappeared. At 1:52 p.m., a woman in a navy windbreaker entered the building. She signed in at the office. She walked to the east wing. She entered the maintenance closet at 2:08 p.m. She emerged at 2:23 p.m. She left the building at 2:41 p.m. Emma Brandt was marked absent for the rest of the day. Her mother received a call at 4 p.m. informing her that Emma had been transferred. Crane reviewed footage for the other 5 children. Each disappearance followed the same pattern. An unfamiliar adult entered the building. They signed in, received clearance, and entered the maintenance closet. They emerged 15 to 30 minutes later. The child was marked as transferred that same afternoon or the following morning. Crane requested access to the crawl space. Principal Foss informed her that the space had been sealed off years ago due to asbestos concerns. Crane requested the asbestos abatement records. There were none. On December 3, 2023, Crane obtained a warrant. She arrived at the school with 2 technicians and a forensic team. They opened the maintenance closet. The crawl space entrance was a metal hatch secured with a padlock. Crane cut the lock. Inside, the crawl space was exactly 2 feet high, forcing anyone entering to crawl on hands and knees. The space smelled like damp concrete and motor oil. There was no asbestos. There were extension cords running along the floor, connected to battery-powered lanterns placed at intervals every 10 feet. There were blankets folded neatly. There were plastic bins containing granola bars, juice boxes, and coloring books. There was a bucket with a lid. At the far end of the crawl space, near the exterior wall, there was a second hatch. This hatch opened to the outside, concealed behind a row of overgrown shrubs on the east side of the building. Anyone could enter or exit without being seen from the parking lot or the playground. The forensic team found DNA evidence, hair samples, saliva, skin cells. The samples matched Emma Brandt, Leo Harmon, and Nora Fielding. The other 3 children had left no trace, or the trace had been cleaned. Crane interviewed the school staff. Most claimed they had no knowledge of the crawl space being used. A few remembered hearing noises beneath the floor, but assumed it was plumbing or rodents. One teacher, a woman named Judy Alcott who taught 4th grade, admitted she had seen the school counselor, a man named Richard Graham, enter the maintenance closet multiple times over the past year. She assumed he was checking the heating system. Richard Graham had worked at Riverside Elementary for 6 years. He had a master's degree in counseling and a clean background check. He lived alone in a rental house 15 minutes from the school. He drove a white sedan. He volunteered at a youth outreach program on weekends. Crane obtained a warrant for Graham's home and phone records. The search revealed nothing incriminating. No evidence of the children, no photographs, no weapons. His phone records showed frequent calls to 3 numbers. The first belonged to Principal Foss. The second belonged to a woman named Karen Moss, who worked at the district office. The third belonged to a man named Dale Wallace, who operated a private boarding facility in rural Oregon called New Horizons Academy. Crane contacted New Horizons Academy. Wallace confirmed that his facility housed troubled youth referred by school districts across the state. He had received 6 referrals from Riverside Elementary over the past 18 months. The children had stayed for periods ranging from 2 weeks to 3 months before being transferred to other programs. Wallace provided names. None matched the 6 missing children. The names were aliases. Crane traced the financial records. New Horizons Academy received payment from the school district for each child. The payments were processed through a nonprofit foundation called the Educational Futures Initiative. The foundation was registered to Karen Moss. Moss had been funneling district funds to Wallace's facility and receiving kickbacks. Graham received a percentage for each referral. On December 18, 2023, Crane arrested Richard Graham at his home. He did not resist. He sat calmly in the interrogation room, hands folded on the table, and explained that he had been helping vulnerable children find appropriate placements. He insisted that the paperwork, while imperfect, had been filed in good faith. He claimed the parents had given verbal consent, which he had, documented in notes that were later lost. When Crane asked why the children had been kept in the crawl space, Graham said it was temporary. The children needed time to adjust before being moved. Some were frightened, some were defiant. The crawl space was quiet, private, safe. When Crane asked why the crawl space was stocked with supplies for extended stays, Graham said he believed in being prepared. Principal Foss and Karen Moss were arrested the same day. Both claimed ignorance. Foss said she had trusted Graham to handle placements and had signed documents he brought her without reviewing them in detail. Moss said she had approved payments based on standard district procedures. The prosecution built a case. The charges included child trafficking, fraud, and conspiracy. The defense argued that the defendants had been trying to help children in crisis and that the methods, while unorthodox, were driven by good intentions and a broken system. The defense presented testimony from experts who described the chaos of child welfare bureaucracy, the lack of resources, the impossible caseloads. In July 2024, Richard Graham accepted a plea deal. He pled guilty to institutional mismanagement and fraud. The trafficking charges were dropped. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Margaret Foss and Karen Moss received similar deals. Foss was sentenced to 3 years. Moss received probation. Of the 6 children, 3 were recovered. Emma Brandt was found living with a family in Idaho who had paid Dale Wallace $12,000 to adopt her without legal paperwork. Leo Harmon was located in a group home in Nevada. Nora Fielding was discovered working at a farm labor camp in California. She was 10 years old. Ruby Talbot and Finn O'Keefe were never found. Miles Peterson's body was discovered in a drainage culvert outside New Horizons Academy. He had been dead for 6 months. Riverside Elementary closed for the summer. The district conducted an internal review, implemented new protocols, and hired a consulting firm to train staff on proper transfer procedures. The school reopened in September 2024. The crawl space was permanently sealed. A plaque was installed in the lobby honoring the memory of Miles Peterson. Allison Crane attended the reopening ceremony. Parents applauded the district's swift action. The superintendent gave a speech about accountability and healing. The media covered the event for one day, then moved on. Richard Graham served 18 months of his sentence. He was released on parole in January 2026. His conviction did not prevent him from working in education in states where background checks only flagged felonies. Within 2 weeks of his release, he accepted a position as a guidance counselor at a middle school in eastern Washington. Crane requested permission to expand her investigation. She had identified patterns in 17 other school districts across Oregon and Washington. Children with similar profiles were disappearing through similar channels. The same bureaucratic language appeared in the paperwork. Alternative placement, behavioral modification, transferred for specialized services. The same gaps existed in the records. Her supervisor told her the case was closed. The perpetrators had been caught. The system had been corrected. She was instructed to move on to new cases. On a Tuesday morning in mid-January, Crane stopped at a coffee shop near the state police headquarters. She was reviewing files at a corner table when she saw a man walk past the window. He was wearing a gray jacket. He was holding the hand of a young girl, maybe 8 years old. The girl was wearing a backpack with a cartoon character on it. The man looked through the window. His eyes met Crane's. He smiled. It was Richard Graham. Crane stood. By the time she reached the door, Graham and the girl were gone. She called the school where Graham was employed. The receptionist confirmed he was working that day, but was currently off campus with a student who needed a mental health evaluation. The receptionist said this was standard procedure. The girl's parents had given consent. Crane requested the name of the girl and the parents' contact information. The receptionist said she would need to speak with the principal. The principal was in a meeting. Crane drove to the school. It was a low brick building surrounded by portable classrooms. The parking lot was full. She waited. At 2 p.m., Richard Graham returned. He was alone. Crane approached him in the parking lot. She asked where the girl was. Graham said the girl had been transferred to a residential program for evaluation. He said the paperwork was in order. He said the parents had been notified. Crane asked for the name of the program. Graham said he did not have it with him but could provide it later. He asked Crane if she was harassing him. He asked if she was aware that he had rights as a parolee. He said his attorney had advised him to document any contact with law enforcement. Crane returned to her office. She called the school principal. The principal confirmed that a student had been transferred that afternoon for behavioral support services. The principal said the family had been contacted and had agreed to the placement. The principal said the transfer was handled by the school counselor, who had extensive experience in these matters. Crane requested the family's contact information. The principal said she would need a warrant. Crane applied for a warrant. The request was denied. The judge said there was insufficient evidence of a crime. The transfer had been processed through official channels. The parents had been notified. Without a complaint from the family, there was no basis for investigation. Crane called the family herself. The mother answered. She said she had been contacted by the school that afternoon and told her daughter was being transferred to a special program. She had not given consent. She had not signed paperwork. She had called the school back, but the office was closed. She was planning to go in person the next morning. Crane told her to call the police. The mother said she would. The next morning, Crane checked the case log. No complaint had been filed. She called the mother again. The call went to voicemail. Crane drove to the family's address. The house was empty. A neighbor said the family had moved out the night before. The neighbor said it was sudden. The neighbor said the mother seemed frightened. Crane requested a trace on the family. The trace revealed they had checked into a motel 30 miles away. Crane drove to the motel. The mother answered the door. She said she had been contacted by a woman from Child Protective Services who said there was an investigation into her fitness as a parent. The woman said her daughter would remain in temporary placement until the investigation was resolved. The mother said she had not been allowed to see her daughter. She said the woman told her that fighting the placement would only make things worse. Crane asked for the woman's name. The mother said she had not been given one. She said the woman had shown identification, but she had been too upset to remember the details. Crane returned to her office. She filed a report with her supervisor detailing the pattern. She included documentation from 17 school districts. She included financial records showing money moving between schools, private facilities, and individuals with records of abuse or exploitation. Her supervisor read the report. He told her the case was not hers to investigate. He said she had been assigned new cases and needed to focus on those. He said the original case at Riverside Elementary had been closed with successful prosecutions. He said pursuing unrelated transfers without evidence of a crime was outside her jurisdiction. Crane asked what would constitute evidence of a crime. Her supervisor said a formal complaint from a victim or a pattern of documented abuse in a specific location. He said the bureaucratic errors she was describing could be explained by understaffing, poor training, or administrative incompetence. He said systemic issues were not criminal matters. He said she should direct her concerns to the Department of Education. Crane contacted the Department of Education. She was told they did not investigate individual cases. She was told they conducted audits of school districts based on compliance reports, not criminal allegations. She was told she could file a formal complaint, which would be reviewed in 6 to 8 months. Crane filed the complaint. She continued working her assigned cases. She continued monitoring the districts. She identified 43 additional children who had disappeared through similar transfers over the past 3 years. She compiled their names, their last known locations, and the schools they had attended. She created a database. She sent copies to journalists, child advocacy groups, and federal agencies. No one responded. In March 2026, Crane received a call from a reporter at a local newspaper. The reporter said she was working on a story about school transfers and had seen Crane's database. The reporter asked if Crane would be willing to be interviewed. Crane agreed. The interview was scheduled for the following week. The day before the interview, the reporter called back. She said her editor had decided not to run the story. She said there were too many legal risks. She said the allegations were too broad and lacked specific evidence of wrongdoing. She said the story would be perceived as an attack on public schools, which was politically sensitive. Crane asked if the reporter believed the children were being trafficked. The reporter said she did not know. She said the system was complicated. She said there were good people in the system trying to help kids. She said sometimes things fell through the cracks. Crane hung up. On a Thursday morning in late March, Crane saw Richard Graham again. She was at a grocery store near her apartment. He was in the checkout line ahead of her, buying cereal and orange juice. He saw her. He nodded. He paid for his groceries and walked out. Crane followed him to his car. She asked where he was working now. Graham said he was between jobs. He said he was considering opportunities in the private sector. He said the education system was too bureaucratic for his tastes. He said he preferred working directly with families. Crane asked if he had maintained contact with any of the children he had helped place. Graham said he had not. He said confidentiality prevented him from staying in touch. He said the children had moved on. He said he hoped they were doing well. Crane returned to her car. She sat in the parking lot and watched Graham drive away. She thought about the 43 names in her database. She thought about the children who had been recovered and the children who had not. She thought about Miles Peterson, dead in a drainage culvert at 7 years old. She thought about the system that had allowed it to happen. The forms signed without reading. The transfers approved without verification. The parents dismissed as unreliable. The children reclassified as problems to be moved rather than people to be protected. She thought about how easy it had been for Richard Graham to move from one school to another, from one state to another, from one jurisdiction to another. She thought about the gaps in the background checks, the loopholes in the licensing requirements, the administrative chaos that made tracking impossible. She thought about the words her supervisor had used. Systemic issues are not criminal matters. She thought about Emma Brandt, found in Idaho, living with strangers who had bought her like furniture. She thought about Nora Fielding, working in a labor camp at 10 years old. She thought about Ruby Talbot and Finn O'Keefe, who had simply vanished into a system designed to make vanishing easy. She thought about the new protocols implemented at Riverside Elementary, the training sessions, the compliance audits, the plaque in the lobby. She thought about the next child who would be transferred, the next set of parents who would be told the paperwork was in order, the next detective who would investigate and find the same gaps, the same patterns, the same bureaucratic language designed to obscure rather than clarify. She thought about Richard Graham, nodding at her in a grocery store checkout line, confident and calm, knowing she could do nothing. Children do not disappear in one dramatic event. They are processed out, transferred, reclassified, removed through official channels. The paperwork is filed, the signatures are forged, the system absorbs them, and the system does not keep records. And by the time anyone realizes what has happened, the child is gone, and the person who took them has already moved on to the next school, the RC, next district, the next state. Because we do not arrest systems, we arrest people, and the system always survives. Story 3. When the doctor told us we were hallucinating, we believed her. We had been trained since childhood to trust Western medicine more than our own elders' warnings. That was her real skill. The first report came on a Tuesday in October 2019. Linda Tso, third-grade teacher at the reservation school, called the tribal police at 3 a.m. Her voice was steady, but her words weren't. She'd seen something outside her bedroom window, something that moved wrong. It had arms, she said, but they bent in places arms don't bend. The dispatcher, Louise Begay, wrote it down. Coyote, probably. Maybe a bear standing upright. The reservation stretched across 40,000 acres of dense forest along the Oregon-Washington border. Wildlife was common. Misidentification was normal. But then came the second report, and the third. By the end of October, 17 people had called. Not all at once, not in a panic. These were measured reports from reliable people. A healthcare worker, a council member, a high school counselor, a grandmother who'd lived on the reservation for 63 years. They all described the same thing. A figure, human-shaped but wrong, moving in ways that violated physics, standing in places it couldn't have reached, watching from angles that suggested it understood exactly what would frighten them most. The word started circulating in whispers. Skinwalker, the old word, the warning that had traveled through generations. The council called an emergency meeting on November 2nd. 15 members sat in the community center, a building that smelled like pine cleaner and burnt coffee. The reports were laid out on the table like evidence in a trial. "We need to address this," said Arnold Whitefeather, the council chairman. He was 58, pragmatic, educated at state universities. He didn't believe in the old stories, but he believed in community safety. "What are we addressing?" asked Deborah Littlefield, the youngest council member. "Reports of something we can't explain or verify." "The fear is real," Arnold said, "whether the cause is real or not." That was the opening, the gap where doubt could enter. The council voted 12-3 to contact the Regional Health Authority, not for a spiritual intervention, not for cultural guidance, for a mental health professional, someone with credentials, someone who could explain this in terms that made sense to insurance companies and federal oversight committees. Dr. Elena Fairmont arrived on November 9th. She was 42, with graying hair pulled into a tight bun and rimless glasses that reflected light like mirrors. Her credentials were impressive. PhD in clinical psychology from a major university. Published researcher specializing in cultural belief systems and psychiatric symptomology in isolated communities. She'd worked with 3 other reservations. All had praised her sensitivity and effectiveness. She set up her office in the health clinic, a low building with flickering fluorescent lights and posters about diabetes prevention. She requested copies of all 17 reports. She interviewed the dispatcher. She asked to meet with each witness individually. "I want to understand," she said, her voice calm and measured. "I want to help." The first session was with Linda Tezeau. Linda was 34, reliable, the kind of person who kept meticulous lesson plans and never missed parent-teacher conferences. She sat across from Dr. Fairmont, hands folded, trying to explain what she'd seen. "It was outside my window," Linda said. "Second floor. Nothing should be able to reach that high without a ladder." "What time was this?" Dr. Fairmont asked, writing notes. "Around 2 a.m. "And you'd been asleep?" "Yes, but I woke up. I felt like something was watching." Dr. Fairmont nodded, her pen moving across the page in smooth, confident strokes. "What you experienced is called sleep paralysis with hypnopompic hallucinations. It's a well-documented neurological phenomenon. Your brain was partially awake while your body remained in REM sleep. The sensation of being watched, the visual distortions, the feeling of threat. All common symptoms." Linda frowned. "But I was fully awake. I got out of bed. I looked out the window." "Your memory of being fully awake is part of the condition," Dr. Fairmont said gently. "The brain creates a narrative to explain the sensory input. You believe you got up, but your consciousness was transitioning between sleep states." She pulled out a printed diagram of the brain, pointing to regions with a pen. "The amygdala activates, creating fear. The visual cortex produces images. The temporal lobe provides the sense of presence. Together, they create an experience that feels absolutely real, but it's internal, not external." Linda left the session with a prescription for a low-dose anti-anxiety medication and a pamphlet titled Understanding Sleep Disorders. She also left with doubt. Had she really seen something? Or had her brain invented it? The pattern repeated with each witness. Dr. Fairmont listened with perfect empathy. She validated their fear. She never dismissed their experience, but she reframed it. Every sighting became a misidentification. Every impossible detail became a symptom of stress, isolation, or sleep deprivation. The healthcare worker who heard scratching, auditory hallucinations associated with exhaustion. You'd been working double shifts. The teenager who saw a figure running alongside his car at 60 miles per hour. Motion illusion, common at night when tracking distant objects. Your brain filled in details that weren't there. The grandmother who insisted this matched the old stories. Cultural narratives shape perception. When we expect to see something, we interpret ambiguous stimuli as confirmation. Dr. Fairmont documented everything. She created files for each witness. She diagnosed shared delusional disorder. She wrote detailed notes about the intersection of cultural belief and environmental stressors. She prescribed medications, sleep aids, anti-anxiety drugs, mood stabilizers for the more persistent cases. Within 3 weeks, the report stopped. The council declared the intervention a success. Dr. Fairmont presented her findings at a special meeting. She used slides and charts. She spoke in calm, authoritative tones about psychological contagion and the power of suggestion in tight-knit communities. "You experienced a localized outbreak of shared anxiety," she explained. "One credible report led to heightened vigilance. That vigilance led to misinterpretation of normal phenomena. Each new report reinforced the pattern. It's a well-documented cascade effect." Arnold Whitefeather thanked her personally. "You've given us clarity," he said, "and peace of mind." But I wasn't convinced. "My name is Ruth Silverhawk. I'm 71 years old. I've lived on this reservation my entire life. I watched my children grow here. I buried my husband here. I know the difference between a coyote and something else. I kept my own records. I noted the dates of the sightings. I marked them on a map. I cross-referenced them with Dr. Fairmont's schedule. Every sighting occurred in areas where she had no documented alibi. Every witness who stopped reporting had been in her care. And then the disappearances started. On December 8th, a 15-year-old girl named Annie Cross didn't come home from school. Search parties combed the forest for 3 days. They found her backpack near a creek, 2 miles from any trail. No body, no tracks, no explanation. Dr. Fairmont attended the community vigil. She spoke about trauma and grief. She offered counseling services to Annie's family. "Sometimes young people run away," she said quietly, "especially when they're struggling with undiagnosed conditions." On December 19th, a 7-year-old boy named Kyle Morrison developed seizures. Sudden onset. No prior medical history. He was airlifted to a hospital in Portland. The doctors found no neurological cause. He died 3 days later. Dr. Fairmont visited the family. She suggested the stress of the recent mass hysteria event might have triggered a latent condition. She recommended the family accept grief counseling. On January 4, 2020, an elderly man named Gordon Fields was found dead in his home. Natural causes, according to the medical examiner. Except Gordon had been one of the most vocal witnesses. He'd insisted the sightings were real. He'd refused Dr. Fairmont's treatment. I started noticing other details. The patients Dr. Fairmont treated, the ones who stopped reporting, they showed physical signs. Scratch marks on their arms, bruising around their necks, bite marks on their shoulders. When I asked about them, they seemed confused. They'd say things like, "I must have done it in my sleep," or "I don't remember how that happened." Dr. Fairmont's explanations were always clinical. Self-harm during nightmares, accidents caused by sleepwalking, normal injuries misattributed to external sources. But the pattern was there. The treated patients were the ones showing trauma. I went to the tribal police. I showed them my notes. I explained the correlation between Dr. Fairmont's schedule and the incidents. Officer Raymond Greyhorse looked at my papers. He was young, mid-30s, respectful but skeptical. "Mrs. Silverhawk, what exactly are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting Dr. Fairmont might not be what she claims. She's a licensed psychologist with excellent credentials. I'm suggesting she might be the thing they saw." Raymond set down my papers. He chose his words carefully. "Are you familiar with the documentation Dr. Fairmont created? She filed official reports with the state. Those reports diagnose a shared delusional disorder. If we investigate her based on the idea that she's a supernatural entity, we'll be confirming her diagnosis." That's when I understood the trap. Any accusation that involved the old words, the old knowledge, would be immediately categorized as delusional. Dr. Fairmont had built a fortress of documentation. She'd created a medical record that made our traditional understanding of danger sound like mental illness. I tried one more approach. I requested a meeting with Dr. Fairmont, just the two of us. She agreed, of course. She was always willing to help. We met in her office on January 12th. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Her desk was clean, organized, professional. She offered me tea. "How can I help you, Mrs. Silverhawk?" she asked. "You're the thing they saw," I said. She didn't react with surprise or anger. She simply tilted her head, studying me. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, almost amused. "Does it matter?" she asked. "What? Does it matter what I am? Let's say, hypothetically, that you're correct. What can you prove? You have psychiatric records documenting mass hysteria. You have my expertise and credentials. You have state medical boards and federal oversight that won't recognize anything outside established diagnostic criteria. Your stories have already been classified as symptoms. Your traditional knowledge has been medicalized. Even if you convince someone to investigate me, what would they look for? I haven't broken any laws. I've only provided treatment." I felt my hands tighten on the armrests of my chair. "The children who disappeared. Tragic losses," she said, her voice softening with perfectly calibrated sympathy. "But unrelated to mental health treatment. Annie Cross had a history of emotional instability according to school records. Kyle Morrison's death was ruled a seizure disorder. Gordon Fields was 76 with a documented heart condition. I can show you the medical files. Everything's documented. Everything has a rational explanation. You're hunting us. I'm treating a community experiencing a shared psychological crisis, she corrected. That's what the official record shows. That's what my published research will demonstrate. In fact, I've already been invited to present my findings at a national conference. This case study will help other communities facing similar issues. She leaned forward slightly, her glasses catching the light. Here's what you don't understand, Mrs. Silverhawk. The system doesn't just protect me. The system is designed to make your truth sound like delusion. When you say skinwalker, medical professionals hear cultural myth misinterpreted as reality. When you present evidence of impossible movement, they hear perceptual distortion. When you describe predatory behavior, they hear paranoid projection. I don't need to hide. I just need credentials. Why are you telling me this? Because you can't stop me. Even if you're right, you have no mechanism to act on that knowledge. Your only option is to accuse me using language that will get you institutionalized. You could try to harm me physically, but that would make you the criminal. You could spread warnings, but I've already inoculated the community against believing those warnings. I've turned your own survival instincts into symptoms of mental illness. She stood, smoothing her skirt. My contract here ends in 2 weeks. I've done excellent work. The tribal council is grateful. They're writing a letter of recommendation for my next assignment. Where? Another reservation. Smaller, more isolated. They've been experiencing similar reports. Unexplained sightings. Community fear. They've requested a mental health intervention. She picked up a file from her desk and handed it to me. The intake report. 19 witnesses so far, all describing something that moves wrong. I looked at the file. It was from a reservation in New Mexico, 3 states away. You're not the first to figure it out, Dr. Fairmont said. At each location, there's usually one person, someone with strong ties to traditional knowledge, who recognizes the pattern. But by the time they do, I've already built the infrastructure, the documentation, the diagnoses, the medical authority. And here's the truly elegant part. When they try to warn others, they're immediately identified as non-compliant with treatment. They become case studies themselves. She walked to the door and opened it. I appreciate you trying, Mrs. Silverhawk. It shows the strength of your cultural traditions. But strength without a framework for recognition is just noise. You're right, and you're powerless. That's the real horror, isn't it? I left her office. I walked back to my home. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. Dr. Fairmont completed her contract on January 26, 2020. The tribal council held a farewell reception. They presented her with a handmade blanket and thanked her for her service. She smiled and took photographs and promised to stay in touch. She published her paper 6 months later. Cultural belief systems and mass psychogenic illness in indigenous communities. A case study. It was cited in 3 major psychology journals. She won an award from a national mental health organization. She moved to the reservation in New Mexico. I saw the news report 8 months later. A local story about a mental health crisis. 23 reports of cryptid sightings. A well-credentialed psychologist had been brought in to provide treatment. I tried to contact someone at that reservation. I called their tribal council. I explained what had happened here. The woman I spoke to was polite but firm. We appreciate your concern, but Dr. Fairmont comes highly recommended. She's helped several communities. We trust her expertise. She's not what she claims. Ma'am, are you currently receiving mental health treatment? That's when I hung up. 3 months later, a teenage boy from that reservation disappeared. Then an elder died suddenly. Then the report stopped. I keep records now. I track the news. I watch for patterns. I've identified 4 reservations where Dr. Fairmont has worked. Each one follows the same sequence. Sightings, intervention, documentation, disappearances, silence. I don't know if Dr. Fairmont is one person or many. I don't know if she's supernatural or simply predatory. I don't know if she's a skinwalker in the traditional sense or something new. Something that has learned to hunt using institutions instead of claws. What I know is this. The most dangerous predator isn't the one that moves in the dark. It's the one that stands in the light with credentials and tells you that your own eyes are lying. The system protects her by making our truth sound like delusion. And that system won't change. Because it's not designed to protect us. It's designed to make us doubt ourselves. Dr. Fairmont is scheduled to work at a reservation in Montana next year. I've already seen the intake reports. 26 witnesses, all describing something that shouldn't exist. And when they call for help, she'll arrive with her degrees and her charts and her perfectly calibrated empathy. She'll listen to their stories. She'll validate their fear. She'll give them medications that dull their awareness. And she'll hunt, because the perfect predator doesn't need to hide. It just needs authority. And we've been trained since childhood to trust authority more than our own survival instincts. That's her real skill. Story 4. The body weighed 140 pounds. I know because I helped load it into compartment 7 of my rig at mile marker 247 on Interstate 90, just past the Idaho border. The bag was military grade, water resistant. The kind you can hose down. I've been driving for 30 years, 18-wheelers, coast to coast, every highway you've ever driven, and 100 you haven't. I know which rest stops have working cameras, which truck stop managers look the other way, which stretches of asphalt go 20 miles without cell service. There's the road civilians see. Clean rest areas, bright truck stops, highway patrol cruising past at predictable intervals. Then there's the road we see, the one that runs underneath. It started in 1997, late October. I was hauling refrigerated produce from Seattle to Boise. 3 a.m., empty stretch of I-90 near Moses Lake. I pulled into a rest area to check my straps. That's when I saw him. A man, mid-40s, average height. He was dragging a girl across the parking lot toward a silver sedan. She couldn't have been older than 14. Her mouth was duct-taped. Her wrists were zip-tied. She was trying to scream through the tape. I was 50 feet away. The lot was empty except for 2 other trucks, both dark. No attendant, no cameras that worked. The nearest town was 12 miles east. I made a choice. I walked over, casual, like I was checking directions. The man saw me coming and tried to speed up. The girl saw me and her eyes went wide. Not with hope, with terror, like she thought I was part of it. The man shoved her into the back seat and turned to face me. He was smiling, calm. He said, "Wrong place, friend. Keep walking." I didn't. I hit him with a tire iron. Standard trucker equipment, 30 inches of steel. I hit him 3 times. The first broke his collarbone. The second fractured his jaw. The third put him on the ground. The girl was hyperventilating in the back seat. I cut her zip ties with my utility knife. I told her to run. She ran. She disappeared into the darkness beyond the rest area lights, and I never saw her again. I stood there over the body, blood pooling on asphalt, my hands shaking, my CB radio crackling with static. Then it crackled with a voice. "Westbound driver at Moses Lake. We have eyes on your situation. Do you need assistance?" I didn't know who was speaking. I didn't recognize the voice, but the tone was calm, professional, like he was asking if I needed a tow. I keyed the mic. "Who is this?" "Dispatch. We monitor the corridor. You did the right thing. Do you need cleanup?" I looked at the body, at my hands, at the tire iron. "Yes." 20 minutes later, a white panel van arrived. 2 men. No company markings, no conversation. They loaded the body. They pressure washed the asphalt. They took the sedan. They were gone in 8 minutes. The dispatcher came back on the CB. "You're clear. Consider this handled. You're family now." I didn't understand what that meant. Not then. I do now. The network isn't an organization. It's a system, decentralized, self-regulating, born from necessity when the institution stopped working. There are truckers. 500, maybe more. We're the mobile units. We move things. We witness things. We handle things when necessary. There are dispatchers, retired logistics managers, former military. They monitor CB channels. They route problems to drivers. They coordinate solutions. There are rest stop managers, motel owners, diner operators. They're the eyes. They see patterns. They report predators. They provide locations for handoffs. And there are specialists, people who know how to make problems disappear. Forensic cleaners, rural morgue workers, crematorium operators with loose ethics and tight schedules. Nobody organizes it. Nobody leads it. It exists because we all know the same truth. The official system doesn't work on the highway. Response times are too slow. Evidence disappears too fast. Predators know the gaps, so we became the gap. For 3 years after Moses Lake, I drove normal routes. I hauled freight. I slept in my cab. I didn't think about the body or the girl or the voice on the CB. Then the calls started. Small requests at first. There's a passenger at mile marker 181, westbound. He needs a lift to the next state. I'd pick him up. He'd sit silent in my cab for 4 hours. I'd drop him off. No questions. Then it escalated. There's a package at the Ellensburg truck stop. Backloading dock. Drop it at the facility in Spokane. The package was always a duffel bag. Military grade. Water resistant. Heavy. I never looked inside. I told myself I was helping. That every package was another predator removed from the system. That the girl I saved in 1997 was alive somewhere because I acted. But the doubt started in 2003. I was hauling a package from Portland to Boise. Standard run. I stopped for fuel in La Grande, Oregon. While the tank filled, I walked into the truck stop diner for coffee. That's when I saw the photo. It was taped to the bulletin board near the restrooms. Missing person flyer. A woman named Angela Pruitt. Age 34. Last seen 3 months earlier near a rest area outside Pendleton. The photo showed a woman with dark hair and a nervous smile. I recognized her. Not her face. Her jacket. A red windbreaker with a yellow stripe. I'd transported a package 2 months earlier. The duffel bag had a tear in the side. Through the tear, I'd seen fabric. Red. Yellow stripe. Angela Pruitt wasn't a predator. She was a paralegal. She'd been working on a case against a trucking company for labor violations. She'd been scheduled to testify. She disappeared before the trial. I stood in that diner for 20 minutes staring at her photo. Then I walked back to my truck. I drove to Boise. I delivered the package. I didn't say anything, but I started keeping records. I bought a notebook. Small, spiral bound. I kept it in my glove box. Every time I transported a package, I wrote down the date, the pickup location, the drop-off, any details I noticed. Over the next 5 years, I logged 63 packages. Most were predictable. Pickup locations near crime scenes, drop-offs at rural facilities. But 7 packages didn't fit the pattern. Package 14, picked up near a courthouse in Spokane. Dropped at a crematorium in Montana. Timeline matched a witness disappearance in a corruption trial. Package 29, picked up near a corporate office park in Seattle. Dropped at a landfill outside Yakima. Timeline matched a whistleblower who'd gone missing after reporting environmental violations. Package 47, picked up near a women's shelter in Missoula. Dropped at a remote quarry in Idaho. Timeline matched a domestic violence victim who'd filed charges against a prominent businessman. The network wasn't just handling predators anymore. It was handling problems. Anyone inconvenient. Anyone who threatened the wrong people. And I was part of it. In 2009, I tried to leave. I told the dispatcher I was done. No more packages. No more special runs. I was going back to standard freight. The dispatcher was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You know that's not how this works." I said, "I'm not transporting bodies anymore." He said, "You already have. 63 times. We have documentation, dates, locations, witnesses. If you go to the police, you go to prison. If you refuse to work, you become a problem, and we handle problems." I sat in my cab for an hour after that call. Engine off, lights off, staring at the highway. Then I turned the engine back on. I accepted the next run, because he was right. I was already guilty. I'd transported evidence. I'd disposed of bodies. I'd helped cover up murders, even if most of them were justified. Enough weren't. I couldn't prove which ones I'd been lied to about. I couldn't prove I didn't know. So I kept driving. The corruption runs deeper than you think. In 2014, I was at a truck stop outside Billings, Montana. 2 a.m., I was in the diner finishing a plate of eggs when a man sat down across from me. I knew him. His name was Owen Kemp. He was a driver, part of the network. We'd crossed paths a dozen times over the years. Sitting next to him was a highway patrol officer, uniform, badge, gun on his hip. They weren't hiding. They were talking like old friends, laughing. The officer slid an envelope across the table. Owen pocketed it. They shook hands. The officer saw me watching. He nodded, friendly, casual. I nodded back. That's when I understood. The police know. Not all of them, but enough. Some use the network, some protect it, some profit from it. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. It just works for different people now. I kept driving. The notebook in my glove box grew thicker. 100 packages, 150, 200. I stopped trying to distinguish between justified and unjustified. I stopped trying to rationalize. I just drove. I picked up. I delivered. I collected my pay. Because that's what the highway teaches you. Everything moves. Everything disappears. Everything ends up somewhere nobody looks. Last month, I transported package 247. Pickup location, a rest area near Coeur d'Alene. Drop-off, a rural property outside Kalispell. The package was heavier than usual. The duffel bag was military grade, water-resistant. I delivered it at dawn. The property was a compound, high fences, security cameras. A man met me at the gate. He didn't speak. He scanned a barcode on the bag. He handed me an envelope. He waved me through. As I drove away, I saw other trucks, 6 of them, all delivering packages, all anonymous, all part of the same system. We're not the bad guys. That's what I tell myself. We started as vigilantes. We stopped predators. We saved lives. But somewhere along the line, we became the machine. We became the disposal system for anyone with enough money or power to make someone disappear. And the worst part, the system works. It's efficient. It's invisible. It's been operating for decades, and nobody outside the network knows it exists. I'm 62 now. I've been driving for 30 years. I've transported 247 packages. I've saved 1 girl. I've helped disappear at least 7 innocent people, maybe more. I'll never know for sure. Every time I close my eyes at night, I see the girl from 1997, running into the darkness, free. And every time I open them, I see the highway. Mile markers stretching into infinity. Trucks moving in both directions. Packages being delivered. Problems being handled. The road goes on forever. And so do the bodies. I'm still driving. I'm still taking runs. Because I don't have a choice. Because I'm complicit. Because the alternative is becoming a package myself. 2 weeks ago, the dispatcher gave me a new route. Pickup location, a truck stop near Missoula. Drop-off, a facility in Wyoming. I asked what the package was. He said, "Does it matter anymore?" I said no. I picked up the package yesterday. Military-grade duffel, water-resistant, heavier than most. I didn't look inside. I never do. I'm on I-90 now, eastbound, mile marker 320. The package is in compartment 7. The highway is empty. The CB is quiet. In 6 hours, I'll deliver it. Someone will scan the barcode. Someone will hand me an envelope. Someone will wave me through, and then I'll take the next run, and the next, and the next. Because that's how the system works. You're not a driver. You're not a criminal. You're not a vigilante. You're infrastructure. A component in a machine that's been operating since before you joined it and will keep operating long after you're gone. And every time you see a truck on the highway, you should wonder what it's carrying. Because most of the time, it's just freight. Just cargo. Just goods moving from point A to point B. But sometimes, it's something else. Something heavier. Something that used to be a person. Someone who disappeared. Someone the system decided was a problem. The highway doesn't judge. It just moves things. From here to there. From alive to gone. From evidence to nothing. I've been driving for 30 years. I'll probably drive for 30 more. Because once you're part of the network, you don't leave. You don't retire. You just keep moving. Keep delivering. Keep handling problems. Until one day, you become the problem yourself. And then someone else gets the call. Someone else picks up the package. Someone else delivers you to a facility nobody knows about. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. The highway goes on forever. And so does the system. I'm just one driver, one component, one part of the machine. But there are 500 more just like me, moving across every interstate in America, transporting packages nobody talks about, making problems disappear, and you'll never see us coming. Story 5. I don't remember driving to the manor. That should have been the first warning. The invitation arrived 3 weeks ago. Heavy cream paper, embossed lettering, no return address. It said only, "You are expected. November 14th, 8 p.m., Ravens Hollow Manor, Route 26, Cascade Foothills." I told myself I wouldn't go. I had no idea who sent it. But on November 14th, I found myself driving through the rain-soaked forest roads outside Portland, my headlights cutting through mist that clung to the Douglas firs like something living. The manor appeared suddenly. Victorian, 3 stories. Windows lit from within by what looked like candlelight. The gravel driveway crunched under my tires. I parked beside 6 other cars, all empty, all with their engines still warm. The front door stood open. I stepped inside. The foyer smelled of old wood and something floral I couldn't identify. Lilies, maybe, or funeral flowers. A woman's voice spoke from somewhere deeper in the house, calm and distant, almost intimate. "Please proceed to the dining room. Dinner is about to be served." I wasn't alone in the foyer. 6 other people stood there, all strangers, all wearing the same confused expression I probably wore. A man in his 50s with graying hair and expensive shoes. A younger woman, maybe 30, with tired eyes and nurse's scrubs under her coat. A thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who kept checking his phone. No signal. An older woman clutching her purse like a shield. 2 others, a man and a woman, both looking around as if trying to remember how they got here. None of us spoke. We just followed the voice. The dining room was exactly what you'd expect in a place like this. Long mahogany table, 7 place settings, crystal glasses catching candlelight, red velvet curtains drawn against the windows, 7 chairs, 7 name cards. Mine read, Lisa Frost. That's my name. How did they know? I looked at the others. They were staring at their own name cards with the same sick recognition. The man in expensive shoes. His card read, Bruce Callahan. The nurse, Denise Warren. The thin man with glasses, Matthew Dixon. The older woman, Helen Caldwell. The remaining 2, Ian Russell and Joyce Mallory. 7 strangers, 7 correct names, 7 seats at a table we didn't choose. We sat because there was nothing else to do. The voice spoke again, closer now, as if it were in the room with us. You came because you were invited. You don't remember the invitation because forgetting is easier than remembering. But tonight, you'll remember everything. A menu appeared at each place setting. Not placed there by any hand I could see. It simply materialized between one blink and the next. Heavy cardstock, elegant script. 7 courses listed. First course, complicity. Second course, betrayal. Third course, silence. Fourth course, denial. Fifth course, cowardice. Sixth course, regret. Seventh course, atonement. What the hell is this? Ian Russell's voice cracked. He stood up, his chair scraping against hardwood. "I'm leaving." He walked toward the door we'd entered through. It was closed now. He tried the handle, locked. He pounded on it. The wood didn't even vibrate under his fists. It was solid, immovable, like stone. "Sit down, Ian." Helen Caldwell's voice was steady but tight. Let's figure this out." Ian sat down. We all stayed seated because running seemed pointless. The first course arrived. I didn't see anyone bring it. The plates were empty one moment, then filled the next. Small portions of something that looked like rare meat, arranged artistically with microgreens and a dark reduction. It smelled exquisite and wrong, copper and roses, and something underneath that made my throat tighten. "I'm not eating that," Denise said. "You will," the voice replied, and this time I realized it wasn't coming from speakers or from any particular direction. It was coming from inside my head, or from the walls, or from the air itself. "You'll eat because you're hungry. You've been hungry for 10 years. You've been eating this meal every day since April 3rd, 2015, and you'll keep eating it until you remember what you took." April 3rd, 2015. That date meant something. It pulled at something deep in my memory, something I'd buried so completely I'd convinced myself it never happened. Bruce Callahan picked up his fork. His hand shook. He cut into the meat. He ate. Then Matthew. Then Helen. Then Joyce. Then Ian. Then me. The taste was indescribable. Rich and bitter and familiar in a way that made me want to vomit. But I kept chewing, kept swallowing, because I realized I was hungry. Starving. I hadn't eaten in days. Or had I? When was the last time I'd eaten anything? I couldn't remember. As I swallowed, the memory came. A parking lot. Late at night. Rain falling hard enough to blur the streetlights. A young woman running between cars, barefoot, her dress torn. She was screaming, but the rain swallowed. The sound. I was there. I was watching from inside a car. My car. I'd been sitting there for 20 minutes, and I'd seen everything that happened before she started running. I should have helped her. I didn't. "No," I whispered. "No, that's not—" "You remember her now, don't you?" The voice was gentle, almost kind. "Her name was Mary Carmichael. She was 23 years old. She died in that parking lot on April 3rd, 2015. You watched her die." I looked up. The other guests were staring at their plates, their faces pale, their eyes wide. They were remembering too. Bruce Callahan spoke first. His voice was hollow. "I was there. I was in the parking lot that night. I saw someone running. I saw—" He stopped. He put his fork down. "I saw someone chasing her, but I didn't get out of my car. I just drove away." "I was working the ER that night," Denise said. She wasn't looking at any of us. She was staring at the candles in the center of the table. "She came in DOA, Mary Carmichael. Blunt force trauma, multiple injuries. But the police said it was an accident. They said she fell. They said there was no evidence of foul play. I knew that was wrong. I saw the pattern of bruising. I knew someone hurt her. But I didn't push it. I signed off on the report." Matthew Dixon removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "I was the investigating officer. I closed the case. Accidental death. The evidence was thin, but I had quotas. I had pressure. I had a promotion coming up, so I signed off. I said there was nothing more to investigate." Helen Caldwell was crying silently. She was my patient, Mary. She came to me 6 weeks before she died. She told me someone was following her. She told me she was afraid. She told me she thought someone wanted to hurt her. I didn't report it. I thought she was being paranoid. I told her to relax. I prescribed her anxiety medication. Joyce Mallory's voice was barely a whisper. "She was my friend. She called me that night. She said she was in trouble. She said she needed help. I heard someone in the background. She was scared. But I was at a party. I was drunk. I told her I'd call her back. I never did." Ian Russell was shaking. "I was there, in the parking lot. I was the one who—" He couldn't finish. He just covered his face with his hands. "And me. I was there. I saw Ian chasing Mary between the cars. I saw him catch her. I saw what he did. And I didn't call the police. I didn't testify. I convinced myself I'd been mistaken. I convinced myself I hadn't seen what I'd seen. 7 people, 7 failures, 7 reasons Mary Carmichael died alone in the rain. The second course arrived. This one looked like fish, pale and delicate, served with a foam that smelled like ocean and decay. We ate it because refusing seemed pointless. With each bite, more memories surfaced. The investigation, the closed case, the funeral no one attended, the way Mary's family stopped asking questions after the police said it was an accident. Ian stood up again. This time he wasn't trying to leave. He was staring at his hands. They were becoming translucent, not quite solid, not quite there. He could see through his fingers to the table beneath them. "What's happening?" He turned to look at us. His face was fading too, like an overexposed photograph. "What's happening to me?" "You're remembering," the voice said. "You're becoming what you always were, a shadow, a nothing, a man who took a life and pretended it didn't matter." Ian tried to speak, but his voice was fading with his body. He looked at me, and his eyes were desperate, pleading. Then he was gone. Just gone. His chair sat empty. His plate remained, half finished. The third course arrived immediately. "No," Joyce said. "No, I'm not eating anymore. I'm not." "You will eat," the voice said, and Joyce's hand moved on its own, picking up her fork, bringing the food to her mouth. She was crying as she chewed. We all were. This course tasted like ash and salt, like tears and burnt paper. With each bite, I remembered more. The news coverage, the way the story died after 3 days, the way Mary's name faded from the public consciousness, the way I convinced myself I'd done nothing wrong because I hadn't actually hurt her. I'd just failed to stop someone else from hurting her. That wasn't the same thing. Was it? Matthew Dixon began to fade next. He looked down at his hands, saw them dissolving, and screamed. But his scream grew quieter as his throat became less solid, until it was just a whisper, then nothing. His chair was empty. The fourth course, the fifth, the sixth. Each one brought more memories, more guilt, more horror. Each one took another guest. Bruce faded while trying to stand. Helen dissolved while begging for forgiveness. Denise vanished mid-sentence, her final words hanging in the air. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Then it was just Joyce and me. "We're being punished," Joyce said. Her voice was steady now, resigned. "This is hell. We're in hell." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe we're just remembering. Maybe this is what guilt feels like when you can't run from it anymore." The seventh course arrived. Atonement. It looked like nothing. An empty plate. But I could smell it. Funeral flowers and rain and copper. The smell of that parking lot on April 3rd, 2015. Joyce picked up her fork. There was nothing to eat, but she went through the motions anyway, lifting the empty fork to her mouth. She faded faster than the others, dissolving like sugar in water, until she was just an outline, then less than that, then gone. I was alone at the table. "Your turn, Lisa," the voice said. "I'm not going to fade," I said. "I'm not going to disappear." "No," the voice agreed. "You're not." The room began to change. The candles brightened, the walls pulled back, and I saw that I wasn't in the Manor dining room anymore. I was in a theater. The table was a stage. The empty chairs were audience. Seating. And standing at the far end of the table, in the place where a host would stand, was a young woman in a torn dress, her hair wet, her feet bare and bleeding. Mary Carmichael. "Hello, Lisa," she said. She smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "Do you remember me now?" "You're dead," I said. "You died. I saw you die." "I did," Mary said. "I died in that parking lot while you sat in your car and watched. I died while Bruce drove away. I died while Matthew closed the case. I died while Helen ignored my fear. I died while Denise signed a false report. I died while Joyce ignored my call for help. I died while Ian did what he did." She walked along the table, running her fingers across the empty plates. "And then I died again. Every night for 10 years, I died again. In your dreams, in your guilt. In every moment you told yourself it wasn't your fault." "I didn't kill you," I said. "No," Mary agreed. "But you let me die. You all let me die. And now, you're going to keep..." letting me die, every night, forever. The room reset. I was back at the beginning. The foyer, the 6 strangers, the name cards, the first course, complicity. We ate, we remembered. One by one, they faded. One by one, I was left alone with Mary. Again, she said. And it happened again. And again, and again. I've lost count of how many times I've lived this night, how many times I've watched the others disappear, how many times I've sat across from Mary and tried to explain, to justify, to apologize. It doesn't matter. The dinner always resets. The guests always return. The memories always surface. Sometimes I think the others are real people, pulled here by the same invitation I received. Sometimes I think they're projections of my guilt, different aspects of my failure to act. Sometimes I think I'm the only real person here, and Mary is a ghost, or a hallucination, or the manifestation of a guilt so strong it's become sentient. I don't know anymore. What I know is this: we're halfway through the 5th course. Matthew just faded. Bruce is crying. Denise is trying to convince herself this isn't real. Helen is praying. Joyce is staring at the ceiling. Ian is silent, and Mary is watching from the doorway, waiting. The 7th course will arrive soon. The others will disappear. I'll be alone with her again. She'll ask me if I remember. I'll say yes. She'll smile. The room will reset. I've tried everything. I've tried refusing to eat. My hand moves on its own. I've tried breaking the plates. They repair themselves. I've tried attacking Mary. She doesn't have a body to attack. She's just an idea, a presence, a judgment that can't be fought or reasoned with. I've tried apologizing. She just smiles and says, again. I've stopped trying to figure out if this is supernatural or psychological. It doesn't matter. The punishment is the same. The guilt is the same. The endless repetition is the same. We're eating the 6th course now. Regret. It tastes like everything. I wish I'd done differently. It tastes like the phone call I should have made, the testimony I should have given, the courage I should have found. Joyce just faded. It's just me now. Mary is walking toward the table. She's holding the 7th plate, atonement. It's empty, like always. Do you remember me now? She asks, like she does every time. Yes, I say, like I say every time. Then eat, she says. I pick up my fork. There's nothing on the plate, but I go through the motions. I can taste it anyway. Rain and copper and flowers. The taste of a parking lot on April 3rd, 2015. The taste of watching someone die and doing nothing. I swallow. The room begins to dissolve. I'm back in the foyer. The 6 strangers are with me. We're all looking confused. We don't remember this has happened before. The voice speaks. Please proceed to the dining room. Dinner is about to be served. And we do. Because we have to. Because we've been doing this every night for 10 years, and we'll keep doing it for 10 more, or 10,000 more, until Mary decides we've suffered enough. But I don't think that day is coming. I think she likes watching us remember. I think she likes watching us realize what we did, or what we didn't do. I think she likes seeing the moment we understand there's no escape, no forgiveness, no end. I think she's owed that much. We're sitting down now. The name cards are in front of us. The menus are appearing. Bruce is reading his with confusion. Matthew is checking his phone. Denise looks exhausted, even though this night just started for her. They don't know yet, but they will. In about 20 minutes, they'll remember. They'll confess. They'll fade, and I'll be left alone with Mary again. The first course is being served. Complicity. It smells like lilies and copper, like funeral flowers and blood. I pick up my fork. I eat. I remember. Story 6. Malcolm Ferris first noticed the sand 3 days after he should have died. It wasn't much. Just a thin line of granules between the bedsheet and the pillowcase, collecting in the indent where his head had rested. Fine-grained desert sand. The kind that takes hours to walk through, not something that drifts through closed windows. He was in a woman's house. Aurelia Vess. She'd pulled him from the wreckage on Route 191. somewhere between Chinle and Mexican water, where cell towers don't reach and GPS signals fracture against the mesa walls. His truck had rolled 4 times. The impact velocity should have shattered his cervical spine. Instead, he woke in her compound with bruises that faded in 48 hours and ribs that stopped aching after 5 days. She told him he was lucky. He didn't feel lucky. He felt wrong. The dream started on the 4th night. In them, he ran on 4 legs through darkness so complete it felt textured. His vision was sharp, too sharp, picking out the heat signatures of rodents and the mineral shimmer of water beneath stone. His jaw ached with a hunger that wasn't his. When he woke, his throat was raw, and there were dark crescents of something beneath his fingernails. Aurelia made breakfast at 6 a.m. every morning. Eggs, black coffee, bread she baked herself in a wood-fired oven that looked older than the house. She moved with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 10,000 times, and she watched him the way biologists watch specimens in controlled environments. Malcolm was a biologist. He recognized the observation patterns. "You're healing faster than expected," she said on the 7th morning. Her voice was calm, clinical. "That's good. It means the binding took." "The binding?" "Your body to the land. Old method, very old." She set down her coffee. "You were fractured when I found you, spiritually. The trauma created openings. I closed them using animal pelts treated with specific compounds. It's why you're dreaming of running." Malcolm stared at her. Outside, the high desert stretched in all directions. Red stone, scrub brush, silence that felt engineered. No neighbors. No roads visible from the windows. Just Aurelia's compound, which consisted of 4 low buildings connected by covered walkways, and a cistern that collected rainwater with mechanical precision. "That's not medically possible," he said. "No, it isn't." She stood, collecting the dishes. "Rest today. Tomorrow we'll start your training." He found the ring on the 8th day. It was wedged between floorboards in the room where he slept. Plastic, child-sized. The kind you get from a grocery store vending machine for 50 cents. It had a fake gemstone, purple, cracked, and along the inner band, someone had scratched initials with a pin. JL. The band was stained, not rust, not dirt, something organic that had dried in layers. Malcolm carried it to the main house. Aurelia was in the kitchen, grinding something in a mortar. Herbs or minerals? He couldn't tell. The scent was astringent, almost medicinal. "What's this?" He set the ring on the counter. She glanced at it. Didn't flinch. "A remnant." "From who?" "Someone who needed to be removed." She continued grinding. The pestle made a rhythmic scraping sound against stone. "This desert is old, older than the names we use for it. There are things here that shouldn't exist anymore. Skinwalkers who lost their human minds. Creatures that started as people and became something else. Something predatory. I've been cleaning them out for 60 years. You kill people. I kill infections." She looked up. Her eyes were gray, and they didn't blink as often as they should. "The girl who wore that ring? She was 13 when she put on the pelt. Coyote. Her uncle taught her. Within 2 years, she'd killed 4 hikers and a park ranger. I tracked her for 9 months before I found her den. She wasn't human anymore, just hunger in a human-shaped shell." Malcolm felt his pulse in his throat. "Where's the body?" "Buried. The pelts are in the workroom. You'll see them soon." She resumed grinding. The sound filled the kitchen like a countdown. That night, Malcolm searched the compound. The workroom was locked, but the lock was old. He used a screwdriver from the tool shed, and the door opened with a soft crack of dry wood. Inside, the air smelled like leather and copper and something else. Something organic that made his sinuses burn. Pelts hung from hooks along 3 walls. Wolf, coyote, mountain lion, fox. Some were intact, some were partial, just the face and forelimbs, or the spine and tail. Each was labeled with a tag tied to the hook. Dates, locations, initials. He counted 37. The newest was dated 4 months ago. The oldest was from 1964. Beneath the pelts, on a workbench, there were tools. Knives with curved blades, needles, thread made from something that wasn't synthetic. Jars of compounds, powders and pastes and liquids that caught the light wrong. And on the far wall, a map. The high desert, marked with pins. Red pins clustered near Chinle, Kayenta, Take Nos Pos. Each pin had a notation in careful handwriting. Confirmed, eliminated, buried. Malcolm stood in the center of the room, and for the first time since the accident, he felt the weight of what had happened to him. Aurelia found him there an hour later. She didn't look surprised. She stepped into the room, closed the door behind her, and sat on the workbench. Her posture was relaxed, conversational. "You died," she said. "Not physically, spiritually. The impact severed your connection to your body. If I'd left you, you would have recovered physically, but you'd have been hollow. A shell. I've seen it before. People who survive trauma that should have killed them, but afterward, they're not quite there. They go through motions. They fade. So you did what? Bound me to animals? To the land, through animals. The pelts are anchors. They let you exist in forms that aren't human. It's an old practice, very old. Most tribes abandoned it because it's too dangerous. People lose themselves. They forget who they were. They become the animal. And you're saying, I'm one of these skinwalkers? You're becoming one. The process takes time. Right now, you're still mostly human, but you're dreaming as a predator. You're healing like a predator. Eventually, you'll be able to wear the pelts and take their forms fully. That's when you'll be useful. Useful for what? Hunting the ones who've gone too far. She stood, walked to the map, and pointed to a red pin near Bluff, Utah. This one killed a family of 5 last winter. Husband, wife, 3 kids under 10. Staged it as a carbon monoxide accident. But I found the pelt in the crawl space. Black bear. The man had been wearing it for 11 years. He'd hunted 23 people in that time, maybe more, the ones I could confirm. Malcolm's mouth was dry. How do you know? How do you know he actually did it? Aurelia turned. Her expression didn't change. Because I'm very good at tracking, and because he told me before I killed him. She walked to the door, paused. Tomorrow we start training. You'll learn to control the transformations. You'll learn to track, and you'll learn to recognize the ones who need to be eliminated. It's not easy work, but it's necessary. This desert can't protect itself. The door closed. Malcolm was alone with the pelts and the map and the smell of old blood. The training began the next morning. Aurelia took him into the desert at dawn, carrying a canvas bag that rattled with the sound of bone and metal. They walked for 2 hours into terrain so empty, it felt like walking on the surface of another planet. No trees, no structures, just stone and sky, and the distant line of mesas that divided the horizon into layers. She stopped in a clearing where the sand was fine and undisturbed. First lesson, she said. Observation. The pelts amplify what you already have. If you can't track as a human, you can't track as a predator. Look, she pointed. Malcolm saw nothing but sand and stone. Look again. Ground level. He crouched, saw it. A depression in the sand, almost invisible. A print. Canine. Old, maybe 3 days. The edges were crisp, meaning low wind. The depth suggested weight. 40, 50 pounds. Coyote, he said. Good. Now tell me where it was going. He followed the prints. They led northwest toward a cluster of boulders. The spacing between prints was irregular, not a straight path. The animal had been hunting, pausing, listening. Hunting, he said. Solo. It was tracking something small. Aurelia nodded. Now put this on. She handed him a pelt. Coyote. The fur was coarse, still smelled faintly of animal musk. There were straps sewn into the interior, leather thongs that tied across the chest and back. What happens when I... Just put it on. He did. The moment the pelt settled against his shoulders, something shifted. Not physically, internally. His vision sharpened. Scents flooded in. Stone, creosote, something dead 300 yards to the east. His hearing opened up. He could hear insects moving beneath the sand, a hawk circling 2 miles away. His own heartbeat, loud and arrhythmic. "Now track," Aurelia said. He didn't think. He moved. His body knew the path before his mind registered it. He followed the prints, but he didn't need them. He could smell where the coyote had been, could sense the disturbance it left in the air. The trail led to the boulders, then up onto a ledge, then down into a crevice. At the bottom of the crevice, bones, rabbit, fresh. The coyote had eaten here. Malcolm pulled off the pelt. His vision dimmed. The sense faded. He was human again, but the memory of being more lingered like a narcotic. Aurelia was watching him. "How did it feel?" "Like I was supposed to be that." "Good. That means the binding is strong. Now we'll teach you to hunt things that hunt people." The first hunt happened 3 weeks later. Aurelia woke him at 2 a.m. No explanation. She handed him a pelt, wolf, and a knife with a 7-inch blade. They drove in her truck for 40 minutes on roads that weren't roads, just tire ruts through scrubland, until they reached an abandoned homestead near Old Giotto Monument Valley. "There's a skinwalker inside," Aurelia said. "Male, late 30s. He's been hunting hitchhikers along Route 163 for the past 6 months. 4 confirmed kills, maybe more. He's using a mountain lion pelt. Fast, strong. He'll fight." "How do you know he's inside?" "I've been tracking him for 2 months. He's nocturnal. He sleeps here during the day. Right now, he's in human form. That's when we take him." She loaded a shotgun, handed Malcolm the knife. "Why not just call the police?" "Because the police don't believe in skinwalkers, and because he'd kill them before they got close. We do this, or more people die." They approached. The homestead in darkness. The structure was half collapsed, roof caved in, walls leaning. Malcolm wore the wolf pelt. His senses opened up. He smelled human sweat, old and stale. Heard breathing inside, slow, deep, sleeping. Aurelia went in first. Malcolm followed. The man was asleep on a pile of old blankets. Mid-30s, exactly as Aurelia said. Thin, sunburned. Beside him, folded carefully, a pelt. Mountain lion. Aurelia raised the shotgun. The man's eyes opened. He moved fast, faster than human. Grabbed the pelt, rolled, and Malcolm saw the transformation start, the man's spine elongating, his jaw distending. Aurelia fired. The shot caught him mid-shift. He screamed, a sound that was half human, half animal, and collapsed. Aurelia stepped forward, fired again. Silence. Malcolm stood in the doorway, gripping the knife, his heart hammering. "Check him," Aurelia said. Malcolm approached. The man was dead. The pelt lay beside him, soaked in blood. His face was frozen in an expression Malcolm couldn't read. Pain, fear, something else. "Search the place," Aurelia said. "Evidence." Malcolm searched. Found a backpack. Inside, IDs, 4 of them. 2 men, 2 women, all different people, and photos. Polaroids of bodies in various stages of decomposition, staged in desert locations. He brought the backpack to Aurelia. She looked through it, nodded. "See? He was hunting. This proves it." But Malcolm was staring at the man's face, at the way his fingers had curled around the pelt before he died, like he was trying to protect it, or hide it. "How do you know he killed them?" Malcolm asked. "How do you know he didn't just find these?" Aurelia looked at him. "Because I've done this for 60 years. I know how they operate." They buried the body in the desert. Aurelia took the pelt, added it to her collection. The hunts continued, once a month, sometimes twice. Aurelia identified targets through methods she never fully explained. Patterns in missing persons, reports, tips from people who lived on the fringes, intuition she'd built over decades. Each target was described the same way: rogue skinwalker, predator, threat. Malcolm learned to track, learned to fight, learned to wear the pelts and transform. Wolf, coyote, mountain lion. Each animal gave him different tools, different strengths, but he also learned to notice patterns. The people they hunted were always solitary, always on the margins. Drifters, addicts, people society had already forgotten. Some fought back, some begged. Some seemed confused, like they didn't understand why they were being hunted. After the 7th hunt, Malcolm asked the question he'd been avoiding. How do you know they're actually dangerous? Aurelia was cleaning a knife. Because they're using the pelts. That alone is proof. But some of them didn't fight. Some of them looked scared. They were scared because they knew they'd been caught. Predators don't stop hunting until they're stopped. But you don't have proof. No bodies, no evidence. Aurelia set down the knife. I have 60 years of experience. I have records. I have patterns. These people are infections. If I don't remove them, they kill others. That's the calculation. Malcolm wanted to argue. But he also remembered the IDs in the backpack, the photos, the evidence that seemed to prove Aurelia was right. Except he'd never verified it. He'd never checked if those IDs matched actual missing persons. If the photos were taken by the man they killed or found elsewhere. He just believed her. Aurelia's cancer was diagnosed 16 months after Malcolm's accident. Pancreatic. Stage 4. Inoperable. She had 6 months, maybe 8. She took the news the way she took everything, calmly, with the detachment of someone who'd already accepted the inevitability of death. I'll need to train you faster, she said. You're not ready yet, but you will be. Malcolm spent the next 6 months learning everything she knew. The locations of pelt caches, the methods for tracking, the rituals for binding spirits to animal forms, the protocol for identifying targets. She gave him the map, the records, the collection of pelts she'd accumulated over decades. You're the guardian now, she said on her last day, her voice thin and papery. The desert needs someone who understands, someone who can do what's necessary. She died at dawn. Malcolm buried her in the desert, near the compound, in a grave he dug himself. And then, he was alone. For the first year, Malcolm continued the hunts. He identified targets using Aurelia's methods, tracked them, eliminated them. Each time he told himself the same thing she'd told him. These people are dangerous. They're predators. They'll kill if I don't stop them. But the doubt grew, because he started noticing details he'd ignored before. The targets were often mentally ill, homeless, traumatized, people who might have found a pelt and worn it out of desperation. Not malice, people who might have been trying to survive, not hunt. He started verifying Aurelia's records, checking missing persons databases, following up on the IDs and photos they'd collected. Some matched, some didn't. Some cases were real, others were questionable, ambiguous, open to interpretation, and Malcolm realized Aurelia had built a system where she decided who lived and died based on criteria only she understood. And now he was perpetuating that system, but he also realized something worse. He liked it. He liked the clarity, the purpose, the permission to hunt, the feeling of power that came from knowing he could track someone invisible to others and remove them from existence. The justification was a lie, but it was a useful lie. So he kept hunting. The accident happened in his 3rd year as guardian. Malcolm was driving on Route 160 near Tic Nos Pos when he saw the overturned vehicle. A sedan flipped onto its roof, smoke pouring from the engine. Recent, minutes old. No. Stopped. Inside, a young woman, early 20s, unconscious, bleeding from a scalp wound. Her pulse was weak, but steady. Malcolm pulled her out, loaded her into his truck, drove her back to the compound. She woke 3 days later. Her name was Simone Alverson. She'd been driving to Flagstaff, lost control on a curve. She should have been in a hospital. Instead, she was in Malcolm's compound, healing impossibly fast. "What did you do to me?" she asked on the 4th day. Malcolm sat across from her in the kitchen, poured coffee, Explained. The accident. The spiritual fracture. The binding to the land through pelts. The way her body was no longer entirely human. Simone listened, didn't interrupt. "So I'm a skinwalker," she said when he finished. "You're becoming one. The process takes time. And you hunt skinwalkers. I hunt rogue skinwalkers, ones who've lost control, who prey on people. How do you know who's rogue?" The question landed like a blade. Malcolm didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice sounded hollow. Experience, patterns, evidence. But not proof. Not always. Simone stared at him. "So you just decide?" "I use the methods I was taught." "By who?" "A woman named Aurelia Vess. She did this for 60 years before me." "And who taught her?" Malcolm didn't know. He'd never asked. Simone leaned forward. "So you're passing on a system you didn't create, using rules you can't verify, to hunt people, rogues, based on criteria that are completely subjective. And now you're teaching me to do the same thing. I'm teaching you to survive. No, you're teaching me to kill, and you're framing it as duty." Malcolm wanted to argue, wanted to explain that some of the people they hunted were genuinely dangerous, that the evidence existed, even if it was incomplete. But he couldn't, because Simone was right. He was grooming her, the same way Aurelia groomed him. The training began anyway. Simone learned to track, learned to wear the pelts, learned to hunt. She was good at it, better than Malcolm expected. She had instincts that were sharper, reflexes that were faster. Within 6 months, she was ready for her first solo hunt. Malcolm gave her a target, a man near Kayenta, Drifter, using a coyote pelt. 2 possible disappearances linked to his movements. Simone left at dusk, returned at dawn. She didn't speak when she came back, just walked into the compound, stripped off the pelt, and sat in the kitchen. "Was he dangerous?" Malcolm asked. "I don't know." "Did he resist?" "No." He looked confused. He kept asking why I was there. He said he was just trying to get warm, that he'd found the pelt in an abandoned trailer and wore it because he was freezing. "Did you believe him?" Simone looked up. Her eyes were hard, tired. "Does it matter?" Malcolm didn't answer. "I killed him because you told me to," Simone said. "Because you said he was rogue, but I have no idea if that's true. I just know I killed someone, and now I have to live with it. And eventually, I'll find someone dying in the desert, and I'll make the same choice you made. I'll bind them to this. I'll train them. I'll pass on the lie." "It's not a lie." "Then what is it?" Malcolm opened his mouth, closed it. He didn't have an answer. Simone stood. "I'm leaving. You can't. The binding is permanent." "I'm not talking about the binding. I'm talking about this, the hunts, the justifications. I won't be part of it." She walked out. Malcolm didn't follow. He sat in the kitchen as the sun rose, listening to the desert wake up. Insects, birds, the distant hum of wind through the canyons. And he thought about Aurelia, about the girl with the purple ring, about the man in the homestead, about the woman who died not knowing if she was a threat or just someone who'd made the wrong choice at the wrong time. He thought about Simone, who was now bound to the land but free of the duty. Who would have to live with the memory of killing someone she wasn't sure deserved it? And he thought about himself. He still hunted, still tracked, still killed. Because the alternative, stopping, meant admitting that everything Aurelia taught him was a lie. That every person he'd eliminated might have been innocent. That he'd built a life around justifying murder. So he kept hunting. And he told himself the same thing Aurelia told herself. The desert needs a guardian. The rogues are dangerous. This is necessary. But late at night, when he lay in bed and felt the sand between the sheets, sand that appeared no matter how often he cleaned, he wondered, were the people he hunted actually dangerous? Or had he just gotten very good at convincing himself they were? He thought about that question a lot. He never found an answer, and eventually, he stopped asking. Because asking meant confronting the possibility that he was exactly what Simone said he was. a predator with a justification. The desert stretched in all directions, empty, patient, older than the names anyone gave it. And somewhere out there, another traveler would crash. Another person would fracture. Another binding would be necessary. Malcolm Ferris would find them. He always did. Whether that was mercy or damnation, he still couldn't say. And that brings us to the end of another night in the shadows. To everyone still here, thank you. Truly. Sitting through these stories isn't for everyone, but having you here makes the dark feel a little less lonely. I hope tonight's tales gave you exactly what you came for. That delicious blend of fear and fascination. I'll be back soon with more mysteries waiting to unfold. If you have a story of your own, or just want to say hi, I read every comment. It reminds me that we're all connected by this love for a good scare. Until then, sleep well, dream peacefully, and don't let tonight's stories follow you into your bedroom. Though, if they do, just remember, they're only stories. Right? Sweet dreams. See you soon.